Along with the license of the IP, we also have an ongoing research collaboration agreement with the NSA, and it's been super rewarding. So we had, all kinds of security concerns that we focused on. We have PII of physical buildings, IP of physical buildings, and our data set that we can't let anybody get to except for those that, the customer wants to see it. But we want to move this needle in the haystack versus we want to measure the haystack approach up and down the compute stack. So we want to add the same integrity features to hardware all the way up into applications and user space to be able to say this entire machine has integrity.
Welcome to The Growth Switch, the podcast where we explore the strategies, struggles, and breakthroughs of bold business leaders. I'm your host, Jules Fox, growth strategist and lead content creator at Aries Media. I'm here to uncover how today's top brands are scaling, overcoming challenges, and unlocking sustainable success. Now, for those of you just tuning in, Aries Media helps grow successful brands with comprehensive, hands-on support for sales, business development, and performance marketing. Go ahead and drop growth into the comments if you want to learn how to do that. Now, today, we have Jason Rogers on the podcast. Real treat. He's the CEO of Invery. It's a cybersecurity startup spun out of an NSA licensed technology, and he's aiming to redefine runtime integrity for operating systems and expose the threats that traditional security solutions miss. Jason, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks. It's great to be here. Appreciate you guys having me.
Yeah, thank you so much. All right. So I would love to know the start of this fantastic story. Back to the beginning, University of Kansas, the NSA tech. Let's start at the beginning.
Yeah, it's a super interesting story, for sure. So as you mentioned, we verify the integrity of systems at runtime based on technology that we licensed from the NSA. And how that got started was, sort of three founders here. Myself, I've been in industry for a long time, network security, IoT, platform engineering, platform security for the last probably far too long, 20 years. I've been managing security and been managing large platforms, network security. Our CTO has worked with me in that journey, but did his PhD work in trusted mechanisms here at the University of Kansas under Dr. Alexander. Dr. Alexander, our third founder, is a professor, distinguished professor of EE and CS at the University of Kansas. And he's been doing research with DARPA and the NSA in trusted mechanisms, for a couple of decades. And he got line of sight to this technology that the NSA was willing to license out. So he approached Wes and I, and we took a look at the technology. And basically what it allows us to do is verify that operating systems and kernels have not been compromised. And it turns out this is an assumption that most security vendors make, that the OS is okay. And if it's not, then the attacker can lie to them. So we ran a bunch of tests and decided, let's start the company. Along with the license of the IP, we also have an ongoing research collaboration agreement with the NSA. And it's been super rewarding on all fronts. They've been really great with the IP license and supporting us and the create. It's almost like an extension of a startup team. And a fast forward button too, because you start with technology that's sort of already been proven out, thought out to some degree. It's been really exciting for us.
Yeah. No, that's fantastic. So who are you able to provide this type of service for? Like, who's this ideal to have this type of thing?
Yeah, we serve both the federal and the commercial market. The nightmare I go to bed with every night is, a day comes where one of our adversaries decides they want to push a button and half of our telecoms go down or half of our electrical grids go down or whatever. So any system, big or small health systems, large government systems, are our target customers. And we're deployed today with inside the federal government and also, across the commercial sector. So really, if it has a machine, we're there to protect it. Obviously, given our roots, we focus a lot on critical infrastructure, but we think, we're necessary for anybody that has a machine.
Yeah. Sorry. I'm sure any founder would think that their infrastructure is critical infrastructure, no matter what industry they're in.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you can just go across the board. I'm doing something with AI. My weights are critical. Well, to me, my inference data has customer PII, potentially my own PII. I might have, some other IP within my system. Data privacy is a huge issue that we help protect for. So yeah, pretty much any industry. And that makes it an interesting growth problem, right? When you can appeal to lots of different market segments, you certainly have to focus on a few while keeping your bobbers in the water on many others to kind of figure out what you're learning. And, through our about 3.5-year journey here, it's sort of what we've done. We know we've got target markets in critical infrastructure, but we explore healthcare, we explore the finance sector, and every time we find a new one, that sort of attaches to the message, it just gets more exciting, and then there's more work to do as you have to scale the team and all the stuff that you need to do.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit more about the Runtime integrity. What does that actually mean in the cybersecurity world? And why is this such a blind spot for most of the current solutions that exist?
Yeah, it's super interesting. And I mentioned early on that, most of your security software today relies on the operating system to do its job. So, hey, what's on the disk? What file was just opened? What's coming through the network? And a lot of times there's this built-in assumption that the operating system is okay. I'm just going to ask it these questions and I'm going to get honest answers back. It turns out that advanced persistent threats can sit and persist in the operating system. And actually, when we demo our product, we demo an APT, an actual rootkit that we throw underneath modern endpoint protection systems that you've heard of that I won't name, and do this, blind them essentially. So a bit about how it works. Use two analogies that are usually quite effective. The first one is the needle in the haystack. So traditionally in security, the defenders are rooting through the haystack looking for the needle. The haystack keeps getting bigger, and so we keep inventing new ways to go through it faster. And so I might have an AI generated threat and I might have an AI generated seeker of that threat. Ultimately, it's a losing battle though, because the attack surfaces are going to continue to keep getting bigger and it's much easier to hide than it is to seek. So we do something different. We actually weigh the haystack and we measure it in this analogy. So if it's an ounce heavier or an inch bigger, we know there's a needle in there. It's out of balance from what it's supposed to be. Also similar to the night sky. Obviously, there's an invariance to the night sky. I can guide my ships to it. I know where the Big Dipper is. I know what it should look like. If it changes shape, it changes location, I know something's gone terribly wrong with our universe. We apply those same methods when we validate the integrity of systems at runtime. So for kernels, for example, for an operating system, we baseline them ahead of time, a gigantic graph of a million nodes of data that say this is how this particular operating system should always look in memory at runtime. And then we just sample the memory of systems running that operating system and we compare them and we look for those invariants breaking. And when we find them, we know that's been compromised. So we're not looking through the threat. We're actually constantly validating that the software is only doing what it's supposed to be doing.
Yeah. Now, this work that you're doing now is quite a bit different from what you were doing with major companies like Motorola, Matterport. So what's the biggest difference in building a startup? You're working with this collaborative team of, if you don't mind me calling you tech geniuses,
Sure, why not? Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, there's a lot of relatability, but it is a little different. So, like, we'll start with Matterport. I was at a platform at Matterport for about 4 years. Went through a SPAC IPO there, but is essentially in charge of platform security. So, if you don't know Matterport, spatial data company, great company, scan physical places, turn those into 3D models and 3D data. So we had, all kinds of security concerns that we focused on. We have PII of physical buildings, IP of physical buildings, and our data set that we can't let anybody get to except for those that, the customer wants to see it. And so everything from cloud native security to physical security to device security was in scope there. And it's kind of been the same trend in my career. We did consumer facing IoT work, home security, but you're looking at both your software security, the devices security, the customers, security in their house, back to the Motorola days of network security. So it's always been an aspect of what we're building software around. But starting Invery, where you're focused exclusively on security, was a bit new for us. But we're able to apply all of the learnings that we took as purchasers, operators of security software in the past, and make it so people like us who are running these large platforms are more than happy and to take on the product that we're putting out there to make them safer. So we make it easy for them to use. So we kind of pull on all of that prior knowledge.
Yeah.
And the other interesting piece is starting from scratch, right? I mean, that's a new one. And that is a very interesting journey, again, made easier by the IP license from the NSA and that crate agreement that we have with them too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now, I really love the analogies that you've got and that needle in the haystack, I'm thinking on that. And I don't know if you're allowed to disclose anything like this, but what's an example of something where Invery spotted that needle in the haystack where other softwares wouldn't have been able to see it?
Yeah, I mean, we can't talk about specifics of customers. However, there is an article on our website written by our CTO, Dr. Wesley Peck, that goes through how an advanced persistent threat or a rootkit that came from a threat actor group in Russia, it's called Drovorub, how it works, how it attacks the operating system, how it evades, traditional detection mechanisms, and then how integrity and the facilities that we employ find it. Basic examples: it can hide files on disk, so I can put a piece of user space malware on the machine that all of the big vendors in the world can't find because they can't see that location on disk because it's able to mask them. They can hide processes. They can hide network activity. And what it means is they can actually operate not just in the operating system space, but they can operate in user space without anybody knowing that they're there, capture data, and if they get on the exfil path as well, can exfil that data with the operator, the customer, the organization none the wiser. They might have network monitoring tools, et cetera. But if I have infiltrated the operating system of those paths, I can just say, hey, I don't exist. You don't have to see me. So the article is a great read. It really goes into depth about how they work and how we detect them. There's a couple great webinars that we have out there as well that take people to an actual APT attack.
Yeah. It makes me think, and let me know if this is on the right track, that you could be compromised for months or even years and not even know it and continue to have your data leaked until they decide what to do with it, how best to threaten you.
Yeah, I mean, and that really is the major concern that we're trying to bring to light here, because we know it is and has and will continue to happen, unfortunately. So we're constantly trying to tackle that problem. And there, again, without naming names, look up Salt Typhoon and into the telecom industry here in the United States. We think that threat actor was in there for years. And then, why? So all of the reasons, right? I might be setting up a large extortion, right? So instead of a single machine ransomware, I might be looking at making sure I get a big chunk, if not all of an organization. So I need time to move lateral, to find all the things I need to find, to lock them down and issue a gigantic ransom. It might be typical espionage, and that could be corporate, that could be criminal, and that could be state, right? It doesn't matter who's doing it, but people are very interested in what's happening in the business, what information I can glean. It might be data theft. So we deal with a lot of, data privacy aware folks. And, I might be a legal firm and I might have, a ton of my data, my customers' critical data that's private to them. I can't let anybody steal that, essentially. And so we're there to make sure that nobody's, stealing it to make money on it on the dark web, the black market, those types of things. So it really is a whole range of attacks that we're there to protect against. And then we're also there to provide the security specialists with information, stuff they didn't know before. This does exist. This threat does exist. It exists here on these machines. There's a lot of response activity that we actually enable through the service.
Yeah. So it's a bit proactive as well as reactive.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So what are some of the goals of Invery to grow over the next 12 months?
Yeah, I mean, we're trying to triple in size in all regards, I think, over the next 12 months. So our logos, our customers, partners that we're supporting, and continue to build the team. Our vision long term, we started with the operating system because that's where a lot of the assumptions were taking place and there wasn't a lot of security there. But we want to move this needle in the haystack versus we want to measure the haystack approach up and down the compute stack. So we want to add the same integrity features to hardware all the way up into applications and user space to be able to say this entire machine has integrity. So when we're doing this podcast, I know you're Jules, I'm Jason, and you're on your machine, I'm on my machine, and hopefully it's encrypted. But we don't know anything about each other's machine. It could be being stolen, it could be changed, whatever, behind the scenes. But if Invery is there and we can say the entire machine has integrity, we have a lot more confidence in this conversation. I know it's you, and I know it's encrypted, and I know nobody's going to change it because I know your machine has integrity. So that's our ultimate goal that we're working towards every day.
Yeah. So, when you are trying to find the ideal person who is the right market fit, as you're trying to triple in size, ultimately it's about getting this in front of the right people to show them, hey, we started with quality tech. We started by making sure we can do something that other people can't. We do it a little bit better. We do it differently. So how do you get in front of those right people? How can you connect with the correct audience?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I obviously, the number one question for most startups, I think, ultimately, you need to have product and great product and lots of things. But, how are you really identifying your ICPs and what markets are they in and how you need to reach them? And it's kind of how we tackled it. So I think, we developed sort of a ideal customer profile that's kind of a duality. There's usually a senior member, a CISO, a chief security officer, a CTO. They're a budget holder. They're somewhat technical. They get the business needs, and what they're protecting against. And the second, for us, ICP is very interesting, is the technical, I call them a technical buyer. they're a person like me in my past, where I would look at that as, is this a fit for my architecture? Is it going to slow my machines down? How hard is it? How much is it going to cost me in time to do it?
Yeah.
Is it worthy? And so it turns out that that duality exists across markets, at least from our perspective in our industry and what we're doing. And so we start with that. We say we know we have two people that we need to make happy, right? Along with the rest of the organization when we sell the product. And so we look at the profiles of people who are interested, like the technical profile, and there it's all community. I'm sure you've heard this over and over again. A lot of the legacy techniques don't work, and especially from that technical buyer, it's a trust relationship. We start from scratch, which is difficult, and you come up to where they want to meet you when you're in their city to have a dinner or drinks to talk about the industry in general, not just your product, because you've established that relationship as sort of an expert peer that can help them just in general knowledge and not just your product. And so we work hard in the various markets, let's say the legal market or the defense market or whatever, to go to those specific conferences, their Discords, their Slacks, whatever, and be valuable to them, not just as Invery, but as people, form those relationships, and then they sort of carry that with their friends and their peers and network effect from there. So there's quite a bit, but focus on who's buying this, why are they buying it, and then are they different between markets? And for us, maybe the people aren't different, but how you find the people.
Yeah, absolutely. And, a lot of times branding influences performance marketing. And in this case, the branding is actually being the trustworthy expert who has met them, provided value to them, and so it's that like, know, and trust factor that those people are looking for.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we don't want, a lot of security companies take on like a cop persona. You must do this. And I think we just try to take on the knowledge expert, persona, because I don't want to speak for myself, but from my team and our partners in research and ESA and others, that's what they are. Some of the foremost experts in cybersecurity. And we're not here to lecture. We're here to teach, to help, to listen, to learn. And I think that's pretty effective, right? At the end of the day, if you yourself are curious and open like that, it's great to have those conversations. I love, those deep technical conversations, especially when you have somebody who's not quite sure on the other end and they start back here. And as you show them what you're doing, but also talk, and they kind of end up here on the screen, the conversations we enjoy.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. So say you could create a little snippet of computer code that could take away the glitch. All right. Because, a lot of times, hey, these people know they need to do something. They see that you've positioned yourselves as experts, that your persona is the expert because you actually are experts, right? So they see that everything is lined up, but for some reason they don't take action. And I think that that's the glitch, right? So if you could write a little piece of computer code and fix that glitch, what is the glitch that you would fix? What's the thing that's not, they see that everything is lined up, but they're still not connecting. They're still not buying the product for some reason.
Yeah, I think it's probably the same for a lot of products in a lot of markets. In your question, which is just a sense of it's cost plus urgency at the end of the day. And so we work both problems, right? Where we try to say it is as easy as it possibly can be to use us and integrate us. So really understanding in general the environment, the security environments that people are operating, and then it's specific for the customer. What else are you using? How can we get in there and make that install as easy as possible? And the second one is just education about the problem. So that starts with like our demo where we actually show them, what are you running? Oh, I'm running this brand, right? Again, don't want to say. I'm like, okay, and then we'll show them, an APT attack underneath that brand and how we prevent it, combined with conference speaking sessions, general market awareness. And actually, this one of our problems is because these threats have been very difficult to find. We feel like our technology is sort of singular in being able to find any threat at the operating system layer. It didn't exist before. There's not a lot of good public metrics at it. You get a lot of like ransomware metrics that are user space attacks of people stealing a password, but we actually don't know how many of our systems across, our country or other countries are persistently compromised. We know there are some, and there have been a lot, and we have a pretty good idea of what that is, but there's no public data. And so for us, it's about saying, not only is this going to happen to you, it might already be happening to you, and it has these impacts. And then it just becomes the equation of it's going to cost me this much money to have to deal with the situation, plus all the harm to the brand and our customers. It's going to cost me this much time and money to implement very super easy, cost effective. And I get that it's a problem. So you put all those together and you can solve that. But it's interesting, really having to drive that awareness to a problem that's unseen because there's no public data until we're out there at scale. So we work with partners, government partners, others to try to publish more and more the reasons why and the statistics to show how often it happens.
Yeah. Yeah. So for anybody watching or listening to the podcast, where can they best connect with you and Invery?
Yeah, Invery.com, Invary, short for invariance, info@invery.com. And then there's a contact form on the website as well. I think our phone numbers are out there. So any questions, anything we can help with, in or outside, I'm very happy to do that. So yeah, please feel free.
Great. Thank you so much. Jason, really appreciate your time and expertise on the podcast.
Thanks, Jules. Thanks for having me.
Hey, for sure. Thank you.